Hey everyone, welcome back to the show. I am Chris, your host in Gaming in the Keats, and yes, it is upon us today, the dreaded Civil War, Dread Elves versus Dread Elves, the mirror match. Maybe some of you have all been waiting for, or some of you are dreading to watch. Um, yeah, so very excited to get this game in with a good clubmate of mine, Mike. And for the record, I don't think I have beaten Mike in a game of Ninth Age in maybe, oh my gosh, yeah, over a year. Maybe more than that. Um, so Mike has had my number for quite a while, and I'm hoping to get it back today. And yes, he has informed me and the group that by the time we get to our tournament coming up, so on April 28th, and that is the Duel of Titans Tournament at Titans Games and Hobbies in Timonium, Maryland. By all means, if you're in the area, please come by, say hello, and sign up. But Mike has informed us that he will be painting his army by then. So I'm going to apologize in advance. There is quite a fair amount of gray in this battle report. Not only on my side for the two hunting chariots, but there are some units that Mike has gotten that are gray. So I do apologize, but they are being furiously painted away. And with that being said, let's get into the lists. So for my list, I am opening up with a Dread Prince on a Raptor Chariot with a 1-up rerollable save, a 3-up Aegis against Flaming, Transcendence for some punchy goodness, and the Obsidian Rock, because I feel like it's kind of important, and a Dragon Staff because I want to make him essentially another Hydra, which I'll get to in a moment. But this build is actually inspired by Mike, which you'll see in his list. He has a fairly similar build, but I chose to go with the 1-up rerollable in this case. I also have a Master of Cosmology and a Crystal Ball and Siren Scales, so I do have the rerolls to wound option if I so choose. I have, let's see what else we got. Oh yeah, we got a BSB, Essence of Mithril, and a Book of Arcane Mastery. So I just have 2 spells there, 2-up armor save, weehaw. And then we have the General, and this is the fun part, I think. So the General has a 1-up armor save. However, her main purpose, aside for, spearing people and doing multi-wounds too with the Master of Slaughter, but she is going to go into that big unit of Judicators and give them Academy trained, and then you'll see the combination here, which is with the Cadron's Pennon, that they'll have Scent of Blood, Swift Stride, and Academy trained. So if I am able to do a single health point loss to an enemy unit, the Judicator unit will be advanced 7 against that unit with Swift Stride. So effectively, they're like cavalry, which I think is just pretty funny. So then, yeah, aside from that, we got the 29 Spears with the Flaming Standard, and to hopefully combo with some alchemy stuff. We got some auxiliaries, we got Corsairs with repeated handbows, we got some Shadow Riders to get in the way of things. 2 hunting chariots, so I'm still trying out these hunting chariots, seeing whether or not I like them. And we got a Hydra and a Mist Leviathan to round things out. For my opponent's list, it is pretty similar to mine. It's almost a mirror match. We got another Dread Prince. This Prince has a 1-up, 4-up. So he's a bit susceptible to alchemy, although he does again have an obsidian rock. So with the crystal ball in there, he should be fairly well protected against potential magic damage. Um, we've got, let's see, we've got an outcast of Witchcraft Master. We've got a Temple Exarch, um, which is his general, who's going to, of course, go into the Judicator unit. So yes, you can see a trend here with giving Judicators all the special goodness. This outcast has the Crippling Frost, so it's the -2 defense and base contact with the model. We got a standard BSB, so this BSB build is also interesting. It only has a 3-up armor save, but then it has a 5-up Aegis in close combat with Moithir's Mirror, and then of course if you allocate attacks onto the BSB, it does the 3 Strength 4 hits at AP2 back onto the model that struck the blow. And this includes initiative 0 or model or unit. I can't even remember, but one of those. He's got 29 spears with the executioner's icon, 21 militants with the flaming standard, 15 auxiliaries, 30 judicators. This one with the Eye of the Gorgon, which I think pairs nicely with the next item here, the Divine Altar. So he has that 24-inch fear bubble. And now the Eye of Gorgon does the one where you have to reroll successful discipline tests against the unit, if I'm not mistaken, aside from the petrifying stare rule. So I think that's really spicy. And then we also have 5 harpies, 5 black cloaks for being annoying, and look, another Hydra. Okay, so on the pre-game ruminations here, on the macro side of things, I think overall this is a relatively positive matchup for me, just because I have more range damage and my list has more zoning capability with the chariots and the swift, my Judicator unit essentially outzones his. And I also have tools against his Hydra and his Chariot Prince with Alchemy. So I think my goal here is I want to be able to go first and to, create a solid board presence and to start chipping away at units that are like the priority targets, depending on how he deploys against me. With the micro stuff, I need to remember the Judicator combo, like making sure I activate Scent of Blood, so keeping within 12 inches, because the Fleet Officer, not Fleet Officer, excuse me, different book, Silixian Officer, now, since she's the general, she can be within 12 inches of an Academy-trained unit. Or I think she can just do that anyway. That's like her inbuilt rule. So her Academy bubble is 12 inches, not 8. So then, yeah, hunting chariots. I want to use them to just do some chip damage, but also to potentially target his Chariot Prince, so I can take away his Swift Stride. I do need to remember that his army has this 24-inch bubble of fear, so while it doesn't affect my Judicators because they now have Scent of Blood and my Chariot Prince, it does affect everything else. Roughly, aside from my big monsters as well. But then spells I do need to be conscious of is the Hereditary and Raven's Wing. I don't want him Raven's winging his Chariot Prince in my face. Because basically we kind of laughed at this, but like his Chariot Prince and my Chariot Prince, it's just whoever can roll 4-ups better for our saves is going to win that fight. So anyway, I'm estimating this to be a 12, but it could be unstable, I would say, just because, he still has a lot of combat punch as well. Like, it's really is dependent on who can get the agility spells off and who can get the charge, and that's what this game is really about. And my goal is to really just do as much damage from range before I get in the close combat. All right, so The deployment is refused flank, and so my opponent won the side to choose sides, so of course I'm going to drop for first. So my opponent chose this bottom side here. So he put me on the top side, and this is the diagonal. He went, as you can see with the laser pointer, he went from left to right. And oh gosh, no, excuse me. Reversing. I'm reversing this. I got the bottom side. My opponent chose the top side, and so my opponent chose for his hill, the actual hill, where I had to get a scoring unit to the hill, and then I chose the forest, where he had to come get a scoring unit to the forest. We'll see whether or not these were good choices. The map was B3, Ancient Fortress. So we have ruins, forest, water feature, hill, forest, ruins, a fence, and another hill. So looking good there. For magic, I chose the Truth of Time, Ice and Fire, Unity and Divergence, and Touch the Heart. My thinking here is I really wanted to try and snipe some of those characters with Touch the Heart, or potentially heal the Chariot Prince, or any of my characters. I think ultimately, and I discussed this with my opponent afterwards, that this was a mistake, but I'll go into more detail about that later. And of course, I have the bound spectral blades as well. We also have Quicksilver Lash and Glare of Gold on the Exarch. My opponent has the Hereditary, Raven's Wing, Deceptive Glamour, and Twisted Effigy to try and mitigate maybe some of my own range damage, and as well as Know Thy Enemy and Stars Align. As I said earlier, I dropped for first as my opponent chose sides. So I dropped with Hunting Chariot, Shadow Riders, my Judicator unit with the Exarch. We have the auxiliaries in the forest with my mage. We have the Mist Leviathan right underneath, just ready to fly out and get in the way of stuff. We have my spears with the BSB, another hunting chariot, my Raptor Prince, and then Mr. Cuddles, the Hydra. Looking at that hill, obviously planning on conquering that hill with Cuddles. I named Mr. Cuddles because historically for me, this Hydra has definitely cuddled my opponent into submission and not really done any killing. So, yes, he has been dubbed Mr. Cuddles. Well, let's see. Let's see if he does any murdering this game. And then also, normally I would put my mage in the Corsair unit back here. However, I felt it more prudent to keep the Corsairs in the back to create the 18-inch null zone from his scouting unit of black cloaks, as you can see here, because I didn't want them just like scouting behind me and start trying to putting wounds on like the hunting chariots most likely. That's what I'd go for at least. But or the yeah. So, and then from my opponent's deployment, you see Black Cloaks, Hydra, his Chariot Prince. He's got the Dread Effigy right here. He has his Judicators in the middle. He has Harpies right behind to make sure they don't get immediately missiled off. He has his Mage's Bunker in the back. He has spears with his BSB, and then he has the Temple Militants off on the right side in the forest. Okay, so my turn 1, Mr. Cuddles comes and conquers that hill. We have the Chariot Prince moving up the full 7, and then supported by the Hunting Chariot. The Spears just tip their toe in the water. I know that this is probably not the most ideal spot for them because they have a flaming banner, but but that's what I did. I move up just tentatively with the whole battle line, really. Just staying outside of charge range from the Judicators. And I think possibly outside of charge range of the chariot. It might be double sixes for the chariot at the moment. The Shadow Riders, I actually just pull them back. I don't need to push forward right now. I'd personally rather just prefer to just start picking off wounds from this Judicator unit. So I just pull them back ready to intercept if he decides to push me. And I also made sure that both the Hunting Chariot and the um, Shadow Riders are outside of 18 from the Hydra, so he can't just walk up and breath weapon me and then cause a panic. I know my general is like right here. Oh, and also something important to note. So I move my BSB out and put the BSB into this unit here, into the auxiliaries, mainly because I wanted to get into range of his Chariot Prince or his Hydra, to see if I can start magic missiling them. And then of course I move the Corsairs up, ready to just, come support, trying to keep this pretty tight 10-inch or 12-inch Discipline 10 leadership bubble. Now in my magic phase, I think I can't remember exactly which spells my opponent stopped, but I think my opponent was able to successfully stop 2 of my magic missiles. However, it did allow me to get a Unity and Divergence off on the Judicator unit, and I ended up killing 7 Judicators, which is great. And I'm not sure if the auxiliaries actually did a lot, or maybe my opponent stopped Unity. All I know is in the range damage, I killed 7 Judicators and 2 Spears. And then this chariot, I think this chariot did not have a shot onto the Chariot Prince. So, we're outside of 18 there, I believe. So, yeah, must be because the Hydra can't just walk up and do that. So, anyway, that's what my turn 1 is looking like. Dread Elves, turn 1. So, my opponent moves up the Harpies. You'll notice here the spears have come forward. It's because I gave my opponent actually I think possibly an 8 or a 9 onto my BSBs and mages unit, which I think was definitely a mistake. I didn't need to do that. I didn't need to go that far forward. So I decided it wasn't worth the risk, and I just fled, which unfortunately does cause panic onto the Mist Leviathan and the Corsairs. And luckily, I passed both my panic checks, so it was a Discipline 10 with no reroll. So that was a bit of a mistake on my part already, as just allowing that situation to occur. It does mean his spears are now pretty close to my chariots and my spears, and a bunch of different charges, but my opponent can easily flee if he so chooses. However, we'll see how that works out. So the Harpies come out to block the Judicators, of course, and he's making sure I don't really have... I potentially have an overrun here. It might be double sixes. If not, there might not even be a potential overrun with the Judicators into the Harpy, into his own unit. The Hydra comes up to also conquer his own hill, and the Black Cloaks come to shoot at the Hunting Chariot. So in the Magic's phase, I stop the Hereditary. My opponent does get a Raven's Wing off on the Harpies to just put them closer and do a sweeping attack on the Judicators, which I don't think kills one. And then the Black Cloaks put 2 wounds onto my Hunting Chariot. I think the picture doesn't show it here, but my opponent, I let my opponent take back a move where he wanted to be outside of 9 inches of the charge of the chariot. which ultimately ended up putting him out of line of sight of the chariot. So that was, but this is a fun, friendly game, so that's fine. So the chariot can't actually see the black cloaks. Okay, so my turn too. All right, so you see some charges already going ahead. So I decided to charge the Shadow Riders into the Black Cloaks. Luckily, he doesn't kill any on a stand and shoot. I think he got 2 wounds through, and I made both my armor saves. But I know that the chariot probably had some cover on them as well, which was pretty useful. But yeah, so my plan here is to charge them. Hopefully, I don't think I kill the unit. In fact, I probably won't. But hopefully, just with the killing a few and then with the charge, just breaking them. And then I want my Dark Riders, or Shadow Riders, whatever they're called, back here. And my point is to be able to start catching fleeing units. And as you can see up top, he has indeed fled with his spears. So, the order of operations was I first charged my hunting chariot into his spears. So he holds, and then I charged the chariot prince into his spears, and that was in the flank. And so that's the one he chose to flee from, and so he pops all the way back here through all of his units, and so that has the BSB. So, I choose to not redirect, and I just fail forward. And here I also charge, here's the base, but I charge the Mist Leviathan trying to panic check the Harpies, but they pass their panic. So good on them. And so yeah, I just go in like so. In the magic phase, my opponent stops flaming swords up on the Judicators because I'm conscious now of the chariot and the Hydra coming into the Judicators. However, I am able to get a Truth in Time up off on the Judicators as well. And I was probably 24 inches just out of range of anything like Truth in Time, or not, excuse me, Unity and Divergence up or anything like that, because, thankfully, as you can see, my BSB wizard rallied here, which is a discipline 10. Again, loving that discipline 10. Oh, God. And, up at the top, you can see the Hydra moving around the flank of the Temple Militants. And something I didn't explain, but with my hunting chariot actually had to move in front of the Hydra to chaff it. Or at least that's how I felt in the moment. So he can't actually wheel past and hit the Judicators. Shooting, I shot into the Chariot Prince, didn't do anything, but I took away a Swift Stride. And then here, with close combat, I totally forgot. Once again, I forgot about that stupid Dread Effigy Fear Bubble. I failed the Fear Chest and whiff, and I only kill 1, and then he kills 2 of me, so it's a push. Crap. Damn that Dread Effigy. Okay, my opponent's turn 2. My opponent charges the Hydra into the chariot. I pass my panic. As you can see as well, my general has moved to this side to give a discipline bubble. So, yay me for thinking ahead. The chariot also failed charge into the Judicators. I think he needed... Scent of Blood is active, so he might have needed a 9 without Swift Stride into them, and he fails. So, thankfully, I'm there. I'm happy that I shot the chariot into him. And my opponent rallies the spears. With magic, I think my opponent potentially got a stars align up on the temple militants, because I remember he was able to get a guiding light up onto this judicator unit. Um, so I'm making a guess here, but somehow my opponent had guiding light up onto this judicator unit at the end of the magic phase. I believe I stopped my main goal was to just stop the hereditary, which is what I did. Oh, and that's what it is. My opponent also got up Deceptive Glamour, or not Deceptive Glamour. Oh God, the other one. Twisted Effigy onto this unit here. So yes, I have now a -2 to my casting rolls, which is not fun. In close combat, so the frickin' Black Cloaks just kill my Shadow Riders. And then, as expected, the Hydra killed the Chariot. No problem. And it's go time! So remember how I got Truth and Time up on the Judicators? Well, I declared a charge into his Judicator unit because now I'm Advent 7 with Academy and Scent of Blood active with double maximized. Wait, yeah, I think it is double maximized, yeah. And I needed a 10, and oh, I got it. So this is going to be nuts. Yeah. I'm just looking at that like, wow, okay. So I saw it as basically, I just wanted to see. I just wanted to do it because I could. I'm not sure if this was necessarily a smart play, but my goal is to kill enough of the unit, break them, catch them, and so that's the general and the spears, or general and the judicators. Hopefully that could potentially cause some panic checks here and there. His BSB has rallied, but I believe that this unit might even be outside of their reroll bubbles. So yeah, that's exciting. In other news, I just kind of pull back a bit here. I get within 24 inches. However, with the mage and the BSB, I put them in the Corsair unit. They have light troops, so it's all hunky-dory there. I get them within 24 inches of the Judicators and 24 inches of the Hydra and the Chariot. Miss Leviathan now pulls back and gets ready to jump in front of these two threats, just in case. Spears kind of pull back. Chariots, I'm moving up now. I'm just moving up and trying to threaten his bunker and trying to just start picking points on this right side. The Hydra moves around the flank. I do get off a breath weapon, and I only kill like 3. So that was kind of uneventful, but my opponent in the magic phase did stop Quicksilver Lash on the Hydra, and I do get a second Truth and Time up on the Judicators, and I think I failed an Ice and Fire on these Black Cloaks. So yeah, I either failed or I just didn't cast it. But that was the intention here. So, but sadly, they're still alive. And this is the action shot. Just to zoom in right there, the Judicators, my Judicators going into his Judicators. We'll see how that pans out. And this is where we end up. So, as you can see, there is a massive, heap of space here where there once were Judicators. So my Judicators go nuts, kill a whole bunch of his. He doesn't do that many back to me in return, thankfully. However, it's an auto break. I failed to catch him with Swift Stride versus non-Swift Stride, so that was a bummer. And he goes through his units. This unit is not panicked, so they're fine, and then, however, I do overrun into the Dread Effigy, which is actually really problematic because this is just adding 9 extra attacks into my Judicator unit from the inevitable counter charge from his spears. Yeah. So this is like actually, I think, the worst thing that could have happened to me. not catching the Judicators, hitting this thing, and now being countercharged by the spears. So, my opponent's turn 3. He's not paying any attention to my battle line. He's just going to focus on the Judicators right now. So yeah. My opponent countercharges with the spears, moves the Hydra up to countercharge whatever's left here. The Chariot comes over to threaten anything that I do here with my Chariot and my Hydra. There is no champion in this unit, interestingly enough. However, yes. Oh gosh. We'll see what I do. And then, of course, my opponent's Judicator unit does rally, and they're not below half strength, so they do save their points, I believe. I'll have to check. But I do believe they save their points. So, yep, magic phase up. I let go Stars of Lineup because I had to stop Know Thy Enemy. And moving on to combat. And yeah, wow. So, I mean, I kill like 8 spears or so. But it's the spears, interestingly enough, I mean, let's look. So, I have 2 models and my general left. And the altar freaking went nuts. Hit with everything, win with everything. I'd made like no saves. Oh my god. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Ah, yeah, that was rough. Oh my god. Right. Oh, and I think I do what I could attack. I did like a couple of wounds onto the altar. But needless to say, after all of this, I think I needed because I had a fair amount of combat resolution as well, because I do have wounds up on the altar. I remember needing a 3 to stick. And I don't. I don't make it. Luckily, my opponent fails to catch me. I do run through the Dread Prince. My character takes a wound, but the 2 models are actually fine. They pass their DTs. So, okay. So, this unit is they're sort of saving their points, but they're they're below half, so they're rallying on half leadership, so Discipline 10 goes to Discipline 5. Ugh, that did not go quite as I expected. But hey, this is why we play this game, because things like that are fun. Okay, my turn 4. The Hydra and the Prince charge the Temple Militants, so I originally charged the Prince into his bunker, but he fled, and he landed perfectly in between his Judicators and his Dread Altar. And I probably did an order of operations wrong, to be honest. I would say I should have perhaps charged the Hydra into the, I don't know. You know what? When I look at this picture, I just don't know yet, because it was probably max charge range for the Hydra, and I didn't want to fail a redirect test, so I just chose to charge the auxiliaries and then redirect into the militants. The Hydra goes into the militants. I also want to point out that somehow my Chariot's back here, and I've looked through these pictures multiple times trying to figure out how this Chariot fled, or from what did it flee, but it fled, right? Something charged it. I think the militants charged it a previous turn, and my opponent just chose to not redirect into anything. So I think that's what happened, that the Chariot just decided to flee. So luckily the chariot rallies this turn. However, my adjudicators do not rally. They continue to flee, but they are at least now within BSB reroll range, so that's nice. Other than that, I kind of readdress my battle lines here. Bring the Missile Leviathan over here to get ready to get in the way, potentially, of this Chariot Prince. So, in Magic, I do get a Quicksilver Lash onto the Hydra and put 2 wounds onto it. I believe my opponent then stops a Unity and Divergence onto the Spear unit. But needless to say, I got a Quicksilver Lash on the Hydra. So yeah, I chose what happened. Okay, so let's rewind here. So my opponent, of course, challenges out the Prince. The impact hits kill the champion, so I don't actually activate Transcendence. Like I just did max overkill with my impact hits instead. And then the Hydra took 3 wounds from the militants from being in the flank. Like that sucked. I stomp on the unit. They break, and I choose to not pursue with either. It was a bit. I mean, I figured if I fail it, then I fail at the test here. Also, luckily, I didn't take any DTs from the from the forest here, but I choose to not pursue. And my reasoning here is that now I'm blocking my opponent's Chariot Prince because of this fleeing militant unit. So that was my choice there. Maybe it was probably worth trying to pursue with the Hydra, and then if my opponent charges the Hydra, I just flee. And then I get a counter charge with my Prince. I don't know. But regardless, I chose to pursue with neither. So that could have been a mistake. Alright, so in my opponent's turn 4, my opponent rallies the Temple Militants. He rallies the auxiliaries with the Mage, and then moves up with the Hydra and the Chariot Prince to essentially threaten now my battle line. And the Hydra is probably going to breath weapon those Judicators, which it's a plus and a minus. On the minus side, it's he gets full points for the Judicators, but on the plus side, it means that my general is rallying on full leadership, because the general will just be a single character out on her own. So, and then, the Ravens, further news, the Ravencloaks stay behind the hill because they don't want to get missiled off. And also probably to get into, no, I think Mike was just trying to save those points, to be honest. And this is around the point where I start to realize, like, I've been playing the objective wrong. Like, for the whole time in the game, I'm sitting there thinking, like, okay, as long as I have one of my scoring units in this terrain, I'll be good. Which is just not how King of the Hill is played. I need to get a scoring unit to his hill, and he needs to get a scoring unit to mine. I just had a total brain fart in this. And I was around this point where I was like, crap, okay. So it's going to be my turn 5 and turn 6. I measured it. This is over 20 inches. Well, it's like within 20 inches, I think. But we'll see if I'm able to get there by turn 6. And in my opponent's magic phase, my opponent not only gets off Twisted Effigy, but I actually fail to stop the hereditary spell, which you'll see it might end up hurting me later on. And yeah, shooting kills the remaining 2 Judicators. So again, bummer that my opponent gets the points for his Judicator unit and I get none for his. But oh well. At least I'm rallying my general on full leadership. Okay, so my turn 5. I start my march to get over to this hill, but this is again where, planning ahead is really helpful. So I did have to wheel out of the Hydra's line of sight, and that wheel, in so doing that, actually, spoiler alert, it costs me the objective. At least in the sense that I can't, unless I come up with something sneaky, I can't get this unit. I can't just march this unit onto the objective. Within 10, this is just over 10 inches. So that was a misplay on my part. However, my general does rally. Yay. I move the Corsairs up to block the Chariot Prince. To be honest, I wonder if I'd really needed to block the Chariot Prince at this rate. As I could just say, hey, come into the spears. I'll challenge you out with the champion. Your impact hits will probably kill the champion. And then I can countercharge you, and I'll have a whole bunch of static combat res. And plus, this unit does have the flaming banner, so if I can do some wounds up on you, great. So I think maybe I just shouldn't have let that happen. I don't know. I just didn't want him to kill my BSB, to be honest. So yeah, but I chose to put the Corsairs up in front of the Chariot Prince, and the Hydra goes in to the militants, and my chariot just swings around here to threaten any of these units, whether it be his. So the chariot can see his wizard bunker, as well as the spear unit, as well as, of course, the Dread Effigy. And I did it in a way so I can charge past the ruins and then make my wheel, so I don't have to take DTs. In my magic phase, I got touch the heart up, and I healed the wound on the well, no, that was the previous turn. So I think my opponent stops flaming swords up, or regardless, I just didn't get anything good up in the magic phase. I'll just say that. No spells went off at this rate. So, uh-oh. And to make matters worse, so what really killed the Hydra? Mr. Cuddles, you poor, poor soul. The stupid Lash Masters go, and they kill one of the militants, and my opponent uses the hereditary that I failed to stop, and did the 3 wounds needed to kill the Hydra. So I didn't make any fortitude saves, or yeah, that sucked. So I just gave up the Hydra. The militants didn't even get to swing back. So that was a bit unexpected. In my opponent's turn 5, because my Hydra died, that meant that the Temple militants could now charge the Mist Leviathan, which fled, and then charged the Hunted Chariot, which also fled. So I figured I'd rather risk the potential of giving up half points versus whole points in the unit, and didn't want the Temple militants in my flank turn 6, which would have sucked. And the Hydra, of course, charges the Corsairs, who did have a Twisted Effigy up on them, or my opponent gets, yeah, there's a Twisted Effigy onto the Corsairs, which maybe that card shouldn't be there, I can't remember, but he got a Twisted Effigy up on them last turn, so that's what that card is there. And my opponent also chooses to bring the chariot over to threaten my wizard's bunker by the last turn, so I can't march out of that line of sight, so I'm going to have to figure out something to do there. And in my opponent's magic phase, I don't think anything eventful really happened. I know I stopped the... Oh, I think my opponent that's what it is. My opponent got a Raven's Wing off onto the bunker. Yes, to Raven's Wing them out of line of sight of my chariot, and then probably another Twisted Effigy off on this unit as well. So I know I stopped the hereditary. So yeah, in combat, the Hydra kills only 5 Corsairs, so he restrains and lets them run, and is able to heal back a wound that I snuck through, actually, which was really annoying. So the Corsairs are saving their points for now, and it doesn't cause a panic on my general, so we're all good there. Okay, so this is my last-ditch effort here. And I think I messed this up actually pretty hard. But I could have won the objective. So first let's go to the Chariot Prince, first of all, my Chariot Prince. So I charge the altar, and I am able to hit the altar at a point where I can overrun into the Judicators if I kill the altar. So that's what I'm going to go for. I also charge the Temple Militants with my spears. The Mist Leviathan and Hunting Chariot both rally. Yay. Like I'll take it. The Corsairs rally within Leadership 10 discipline, so happy about them. And so here's where I think I messed up. Mike can correct me if I'm wrong, the order of operations, if he's seeing this video. By all means, correct me. But if I remember correctly, I chose to charge your chariot first. I chose to charge your chariot with the auxiliaries, I think. And then you held, and then I chose to charge the chariot with my general. And that's the one you fled from, which your Raven cloaks are fine. They pass their panic. But if that is correct, then I think I messed up. I think to be honest, what I really just should have done is just declared the charge onto your chariot with this unit and just say, hey, I'm going to challenge you out with a champion. The problem was I didn't want you had 2 turns essentially. So what I didn't want was to challenge you out with a champion my turn and then have you kill the unit and break it on your turn and losing me the objective. So I can see why I chose to charge my officer in there as well, because I do have lethal strike. I do have multi wounds too, so that could be spicy. But anyway, I'm curious of what the actual order of operations would have been to allow me, essentially, the reason why I charge this unit is because it gets me onto the hill, and that's why my opponent chose to flee. So it basically denies me the objective in the end. So great play on Mike. Magic Phase, I remember it just being another dud. So let's go into combats. Alright, so the spears do kill the Temple Militants. I know I break them and then run them down without not taking too much back in return. This fucking altar, had 3 wounds remaining on it, and my chariot guy, Mike just made all of his saves. Crap. So I don't kill this thing and it's unbreakable. So I just reform my I think I put a wound or 2 onto it. Oh, I think Mike made all of his saves against the guy himself, the prince himself, but then my raptor snuck a wound through or something. So yeah, I turned to face because I don't want to be I don't want to have this charge here and just have combat resolution, but I guess my opponent may not do that anyway. Like, because you have a flank, big flank, charge. He doesn't have a champion, though, so maybe that's too risky for him. But anyway, I just turned to face them anyway, because, this altar now only has, I think, 1 wound left on it. So I only was able to do 2 wounds total to that thing when I charged in with the chariot. Alright, my opponent's turn 6. My opponent does not charge my chariot. My opponent does charge the Hydra and eats the Corsairs. I just flee and he catches them. He moves the Black Cloaks up to maybe do some wounds to my auxiliary, my general. The chariot prince rallies. And in my opponent's magic phase, he gets a Raven's Wing off and Raven's Wing this unit right in front of my spears. And you can see what's going to happen next. So he he rips apart this unit. Luckily, though, here's the dice. I pass my panic. And the spears do save their points. So he doesn't get any points for the spears, but that was a bit of a concerning moment there. And the chariot prince does finally kill the altar, but everyone sticks around and passes their panic. And that is the end of the game. Whew, what a game. It was a lot of fun, and thank you, Mike, for such a great game. That was really enjoyable, and let's check out the points. And it is a Dread Elf victory. So Mike definitely won the game. It is a 12-8 victory, so the casualties on my side were the Shadow Riders, Corsairs, Judicators, a Hunting Chariot, my Mr. Cuddles, and a Miss Leviathan. And the only points I actually got from my opponent was his Temple Militants, the Divine Altar, and some Harpies, because no, I did not get I did not get half points for those Judicators. Bummer. It was definitely a game where I felt like, we can go into it, post-game thoughts, but honestly, well played to Mike. I think he definitely outplayed me, and I'm still on my losing streak with Mike. And funnily enough, I've never actually won against Dread Elves either. I've played Dread Elves a few times, as the mirror match, and I've never won a game. So I'm just I got some work to do, that's for sure. So in my post-game thoughts here, on the macro side of things, it's just remembering how to frickin' play the objective. Oh my god. King of the Hill. And it's funny because I've made this mistake with King of the Hill more than once. For whatever reason, this objective just, in my head while I'm playing it, I just forget how to play it and then realize it sometimes when it's just too late. And so it's definitely a facepalm moment there. And I probably could have chosen a different hill. I just really wanted to dictate, when I chose the forest there, I just really wanted to dictate that, okay, if he's going to try and get to mine, he's going through all of my combat units. That's my thought process there, but perhaps I could have chosen, say, the fence or or my own hill to make it more difficult for him to try and push me. But c'est la vie, neither of us got the objective. In terms of the micro, I think I made a lot of micro mistakes, to be honest. I gave that risky charge with the auxiliaries in the beginning, so it forced me to kind of flee. Mike and I talked about this afterwards, but he argued that I actually chose to charge his spear unit a bit too early, and that I could have actually just pushed up with my chariots more, putting the pressure on his bunker earlier instead of just charging my turn 2, which I do agree with there. Then, I forgot the fear bubble with the Shadow Riders into um, the Black Cloaks, and that's just my fault there. And I think that did cost me that left side there. To not have those Shadow Riders in the backfield to push off, like the point of them being back there, for me, and knowing how Mike plays and knowing like just knowing that my opponent's probably going to be fleeing is that I want a unit to push a unit off the board, and that's why I wanted to at least attempt that maneuver, but it did not work out. Failing the catch the adjudicator sucked. Losing the Hydra double sucked, and I think I mean the playing my own Chariot Prince probably goes back into the second point of choosing to charge the spears too early, but I probably could have, I could have played my own prince a bit differently, to be honest. So these are the thoughts I have. Oh, and then one more thing I wanted to add was that I should have, in terms of spell selection, I should have chosen my own hereditary. Because it's great for killing squishy targets like elves. So that's another mistake I made there. Anyway, I thought I had some good positive moments as well in the game of just trying to maneuver my leadership bubbles as well. And like, yeah, I do like the decision of restraining with the prince and the Hydra to block his own prince to essentially use his unit as chaff. But hey, like I know most of these things are mostly negative, but I do recognize the positives in some of the playing I do as well. And again, this is all learning experience, and that's why I do these reports. So there you have it. And if you've made it this far, you're awesome. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll catch you on the next one. Ciao, ciao for now, y'all.